Nope. Words matter.
This morning, Brother Pelletier said, "Get your feet wet when you go to sister."
we got our feet wet. Poor Sister Ashley. Yeah, I think so. Hello? Yes. Welcome to Words Matter. I'm Brother Pelletier. That's Brother Bradshaw, my co-host. All right. We are going to talk about words matter. And to do that, we're going to go all the way back to the beginning. When we open the Bible, very first thing we learn about God is that words matter. He speaks the world into existence. He creates using words. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. He didn't. That's how he did. That's how he did everything that we see is using words, his voice. He spoke. And so creation happened through words. And we love John 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word became flesh, right? And so God reveals himself as a speaking God, as a God that uses words to create. How many of us have ever said something and immediately wished we could take those words back? Yeah, we don't have a rewind though, do we? But I guess the good news is we can use our words from that point on to start creating what we really wanted, what we really meant. So we don't get the rewind, but when God said, "Let us make man in our own image," he's saying we have that creative power with our words too, because words matter. We don't necessarily create galaxies and all that, but we create the atmosphere around us using our words. We create momentum in our classrooms using words, and we definitely put identity into our kids by the words that we choose. And really, this words matter concept is something that the years that I've known Brother Bradshaw, that's like he's the words matter man. He says it and he means it. And so we're going to tag team this session together. So, brother, talk to us about words matter.
So when I say words matter, I'm not talking about just being polite, right? Because anybody has the capacity to be polite. But when I say words matter, I mean stop and think about the words that you are using to talk to these children. I'm talking about like giving direction. For instance, words steer things. You can use one sentence and change the entire temperature of a room. Like the whole atmosphere of a room shifts simply by using the wrong or the right words. For instance, if we had a whole room full of energetic, bubbly, bouncing kids in this room right now, and it sounds like utter energy in the room. You see, y'all use the wrong word there. There's so much energy in a room, or there's so much, you already said it, chaos. Same room, one word difference, and we shifted the entire atmosphere from something being that we feel like is out of control to something we feel like we can control, but we are so excited that they are acting in this manner. That was so perfect. Y'all fell right into that. That worked out so awesome. But when you say this room feels like chaos, it makes you feel like maybe you're overwhelmed because we can't really control chaos so much. I know we like to use that in Union City. We say it a lot with that. When we walk into a room and like kids are just everywhere, we always say, well, it's just controlled chaos because the chaos is going to exist with or without us. You just have to learn how to control it. But say that exact same room, a leader walks in, and instead of saying, "Oh, this is chaos. What in the world is going on?" to, "Whoa, this is exciting. Oh, this is awesome. These kids want to be here. These kids are excited. God's doing something in the room." All we did was shift and just words. How many How many here, and it's not in my notes, but how many here has ever heard sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me? That is the most false statement that we have ever, the most false poem that we have ever said to our kids. Because words stick that fast. You and I could be having a bad day, and we say something, and we don't mean it the way that it comes out, but all of a sudden that kid's, they don't like me. Well, that's not the way I meant it at all. But it's because of the inflection in my voice and what I have said, the words that I have chosen to use to talk to them. The room itself didn't change. The chaos or the excitement, it didn't change. But how you perceived it did. And because of that, you have steered the entire direction of that room. From utter chaos to something we can't control to this is exciting and the kids want to be here. And it even that one word change there changes something in you and the way that you're viewing things. Just one word difference makes that much of a difference. Everybody wants growth. Everybody wants revival. Everybody wants a room full of kids and the excitement. But one thing, and if you've been in some of my sessions, when we pray for rain, we have to expect the mud. But we have to have the rain for the flowers and the grass to grow. And a church that is not having revival, a church that does not have the rain, is going to end up just like we do in a normal drought, a natural drought. Everything will begin to die. But growth brings the noise. Growth brings energy. Growth brings kids that don't know how to behave, but we're trying to teach them how to behave. But if our words are constantly saying, this is too much, this is chaos, y'all fell right perfectly into that trap. We can't handle this. This is out of control. Then that becomes your culture. Because words matter. If words didn't matter, why do we have dictionaries and concordances and thesauruses? And why do we have all of these things? Because words matter. Words matter in the Bible. He already said it. God spoke and it happened. Well, we have that same power in a sense of creating things in these children. The word you begin to speak begins to become their identity. It becomes who they are instead of what they are. And I'm getting ahead a little bit, but whenever you change your wording from this is chaos to this is exciting, these kids are not listening to these kids are still learning. The devil's working in here because these kids are they're awful, or God's fixing to do something in here. Because where there's opportunity here. There's a blank canvas here. God's about to do something here. Then suddenly, the exact same room that you walked into and say is chaos, and I walked into and said this is exciting, the exact same room feels completely different to you than it does to me. And it's simply because I've changed the wording of what I am using when I am talking about the room. Because words steer the direction of ministry.
Yes, it's so right, so true. And you know, the Bible mentions Proverbs 18:21, death and life are in the power of the tongue. That's, man, it's truth. It's truth. Words matter. And you know, this isn't in my notes either, but we're going to go off script for a second. But I got to share the story because words matter. I got a friend, he's got 6 kids, great marriage. I'm like, dude, how do you do it? Like, I want to be a better husband. How do you do it? And he's like, it's all about communication, how I talk to my wife. I was like, okay, I need help. She's like, yeah, you need help. So I'm like, I said, give me an example. He says, okay, the other night I was sitting on the couch with his wife, and he says, I put my arm around her. I just looked into her eyes. I said, baby, I love you. I said, when I'm with you, time just stands still. I'm like, oh, that's good. That's smooth. That's smooth. He's got the wrist. Like, I want to try that. So that night, go home, check in with Kimberly. How's your day? Everything's good. Okay, we're relaxing. On the couch, I put my arm around her, look into her eyes. I said, baby, when I look at you, you got a face that'll stop a clock. Words matter. Death and life. Death and life are in the power of your tongue. She's not too excited about that. All right. Oh man, now where am I? All right.
In trouble.
Yeah, that's right. Death and life, power of the tongue. So when you see death and life, that's atmosphere. You got a dead atmosphere, or you got an atmosphere that's teamed with life, right? Every classroom has that atmosphere. And we build that as teachers, as leaders in the classroom, or on the bus, or in our world. We build that with our words. And again, James 3:5, the tongue is a little member that boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. Just the difference in time standing still and stopping the clock. You can burn the forest down. One sentence can change the room, and that's the difference between this class is wild and this class is alive. One of the things that really, like, you ever go into a class and you're like, everybody having fun? And you get the goofball. No, I'm bored, right? But if you go in there and you're like, we're having a blast, we're going to, whatever it is you're going to do, it changes the atmosphere. So, in the expectation, that's right. Okay, so if you listen to Sunday School Junkie, we're going to play a game right now that we played on there. It's a little Mad Lib story game. Everybody remember Mad Libs? You fill in the blanks. And they usually will tell you kind of what word to use. Oh yeah, we put it in the book there. Okay. So we're going to build this little story together called Last Sunday. I'll start a sentence. Y'all fill in the blanks. Go ahead, shout it out. Let it get crazy. Okay. Sunday school was starting, and the classroom felt electric. That's good. Electric. We're starting off okay.
That's shocking.
The kids blanked into the class. Ran. The kids ran into the class. And they were excited. Okay. Hey, y'all are doing okay now. He got you with that chaos earlier.
I did get you.
One kid immediately asked, where's the food? Do we get snacks? Another kid announced, oh, don't think back to last Sunday because there's no telling. Another kid announced, today's my birthday. Okay. And as the teacher, I felt enlightened. Oh, yeah, we're going to stick with the electric stuff.
Yeah.
So what do we do? Said, let's sing happy birthday. Yes. All right. When it was time to start the lesson, the room felt happy birthday-ish. Yeah, we'll go with energetic. Okay. So I said, oh, this is a good one. So I said,
First one on the list.
Everyone calm down. That's what I got written right here. Sit down. Kids are to be seen, not heard. No. All right. Let's learn something awesome. We'll go with that. Then it was time for the object lesson. And I said, y'all want to see something neat? Let's hope this guy's head doesn't blow off. Brother Ashley's blowing kids' head. Not real kids.
I'm glad you prefaced that.
Yeah. Want to see something neat? The object lesson. Okay. Worked perfectly. Worked eventually. The object lesson created a mess that we get to talk about later.
Dear Pastor.
The kids half the kids shouted. Do it again. And by the end of class, the kids had a blast. What was that? Didn't want to leave. That's good. Had a blast and didn't want to leave. And as I walked to the parking lot, I'm going to give you all two choices. As I walked to the parking lot, I thought, why do I do this? Or as I walked to the parking lot, this is why I do this. That is, I think that's a fun little exercise, and nothing in that, like we can all do different, we can do reality answers, we can do right answers, we can do silly answers, right? Nothing about that changes the kids or the room, but the story changes based on the words that we use. Because what we do in children's ministry shapes the atmosphere of the room. And when we say this class is wild, it feels way different than if we say this class is alive. Our words matter. And when we say these kids are loud, it feels different than when we say these kids are passionate, or these kids are alive, or these kids are energetic. And the most important part here is that I call that last Sunday. Last Sunday. Last Sunday's written. Last Sunday is done. There's nothing we can do to change last Sunday. But the incredible thing is tomorrow we get another chance for another Sunday, and then the next Sunday, and the next Sunday, and the next Sunday. And even though we don't have that rewind button, when we say something, when we put something off, we don't have a way to snatch it back. But we do have an opportunity every time we take the next breath to change those words. And before the kids even walk through the door next week or tomorrow, before the first crayon snaps in half, before the kid comes in and says, "Where's the snacks?" We can get to choose our words. We can get to choose how we're going to push that forward, and that's why words matter.
So going back to what I said before with that poem, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me. I think a more accurate way to say that would be, sticks and stones may hurt my bones, but words will shape my soul. And the reason I say that is because kids believe what we repeatedly tell them. Adults, we can brush things off. Who cares? They don't like me. I could care less, right? The first mistake they made is assuming I had feelings. You know, we say that all the time, right? But kids can't. Why? Because they are still that clay that is still moldable. And they're still in these stages to where they are so moldable. That's why we said it yesterday. You know, when mom and dad are telling them something, that's just reality to them. You know, when you're praying with them, that's just reality to these kids because that's all they know. They don't have life experience to draw from. So this is all new to them. But this is why it becomes so important, because words stick. I know he talked yesterday about making things sticky. One word misspoken will stick with that kid. You know, and I said it this way: people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. But when you start talking to these kids from that place of, I could care less, or inadvertently because you had a bad day, I'm sorry your wife got upset at you for saying that her face would start a clock, but that's not the kid's fault. I'm sorry that the boss yelled at you yesterday. That's not the kid's fault. And when the inflection in your voice and the words that you're using come out with that sharp edge on them, you're wounding. You're killing these kids, death by 1,000 slices. You're slowly killing them with every slice that goes into their soul. Words for these children become their identity. It becomes who they are. A child who constantly hears, "You're always talking," or "You're the problem," or "You never listen," those are all characterizations of who that kid is. You're using words like, you are the problem. You never listen. You are always talking. Eventually, that becomes who they are because you have affirmed to them that's who you are. You are the problem. instead of you've created a problem. Now they have the power to choose whether or not they can be part of the solution because they realize that a problem has been created instead of assuming that they are the whole problem. What do we make that old adage, are you going to be part of the solution or are you going to be part of the problem? And then my little girl say, I'm going to be the whole problem, that kind of thing. But when their identity changes, when they start believing what you are saying about them, their behavior usually follows this. And you can see this simply by the way you talk to a kid, and you can see the change instantaneously when you say something to them. You can see the change on their face instantaneously, whether you've just made a mistake or whether you just made the right decision in what you were saying. And you can see it because their whole countenance changes. Their shoulders droop. Their face gets forlorn. Or they get excited. They straighten up. The same kid could also hear, instead of, you're always talking, the same kid, you are the problem, the same kid you never listened to, you realize you're a leader? And everybody in this room are listening and watching what you're doing, and I need your help. Can you help Brother Bradshaw with? All of a sudden, I've given that kid purpose. I've given that kid a task, where before I wanted to wring his neck because he's the worst kid in class. He's acting up. He won't sit down. He won't be quiet. And he's a ringleader. Everybody's watching him. Everybody's following him because he is a leader. And I'm dealing with one kid, but there's 15 kids that are following the one kid. If I can get that kid on my side, I've got the 15 kids. So what do? I invite him to be part of the solution because right now he's part of the problem. But I'm going to invite him to help Brother Bradshaw become part of the solution. Hey, you see all these other kids? Man, they got a lot of energy today, and they're not exactly putting it in the right place. Can you help Brother Bradshaw? Can you help me show these kids what we're supposed to be acting like? Yeah. Me? Yeah, you. Can you help me? Yeah, I'd love to help you. And now all of a sudden, I don't have to get on to 15 kids. He's going to do it for me. Hey, y'all, quiet. Brother Bradshaw's talking. I ain't said a word. All because I changed the way you're the problem. Now I've created him being part of the solution, and it's simply because of how I use my words. We're not crushing their identity, but rather we're redirecting behavior, and that's the huge difference there. Correction should never attack who a child is, but rather it should guide what that child is doing. There are no problem kids. There are kids that are creating problems. And you and I need to invite them to become part of that solution. And all of a sudden, our job is so much easier. You're not banging your head against the wall saying, why do I do this? Why do I say this is why I do this? I just created purpose in this kid. I just created an identity in this kid where he is now going to be a leader. He already is. It was in the wrong area. But now I've created a leader out of him who wants to help me and wants to exhibit what it is to be a godly young person, exhibit what it is to listen, exhibit what it is to use his inside voice or whatever it is. Instead of saying, what's wrong with you? Bro, what is wrong with you? You could say, hey, let's try it again this way and do it the right way. Instead of saying, sit down and shut up or be quiet, say, hey, can you show me how good of a listener you are? Can you show Brother Bradshaw that? Instead of saying, you're out of control, just say, hey, can you help me get this back together? We're kind of going off the rails here. Can you help me get this back together? The same correction, the same expectation, but done in a completely different spirit. Because everything we do in children's ministry, we should do from a place of love. Not from a place of frustration, not from a place of anguish, but from a place of love. Because that is all these kids desire. All of a sudden, that kid can feel and sense the difference. And over time, those kind words begin to shape how they see themselves. Because you are creating identity in that problem kid. You're creating identity. And all of a sudden, the words that no longer are supposed to, Sticks and stones may break bones, words never hurt me. All of a sudden, your words begin to shape who they are, begins to shape their souls. And it's amazing to see the switch flip, and you can see the light or you can see the shame that comes over a kid simply by what word you choose to use.
So good, so right. And on that note, how you approach that is so important too. Like, not just words, like not just saying it, but how you get like you can. It's so easy to just, they're little, to loom over them versus getting on their level, like eye contact, not from a looking down on them, but get on their level wherever they're at and talk to them man to man, woman to woman. It's leadership. Like one of the things raising our kids is I I would always in the discipline, and she's strict, y'all. But in the discipline, I'd always like when my boy, especially when he was younger, I'd have him put his hands on my shoulders and look me in the eye when we're talking, because otherwise he'd get distracted real easy. And so I'd want him to focus on me and let's fix this. So yeah, that's so good. Intent versus impact. So sometimes what we say lands a lot different than what we meant for it to say, even when we try our best. And real recently, at our home church, we do a quarterly door decorating contest, and where our teachers decorate the doors, and we have a theme, and then they go for it and they go all out. So like this theme was Heroes of the Faith. We were doing the Heroes of Faith curriculum, action, and so the theme was for them to pick a hero and make the door after that, and so they were all good. But one of the doors was the kindergarten class did Noah's Ark, and they went all out, like the ark was going down the hallway a little bit on both sides of the door, and they had animals and stuff, and it was cool. It was really cool, and I liked it. As at that moment, it was my second favorite door in the department. And I'm not gonna be like, the lying preacher. I'm gonna tell you I have favorite doors. I just do. Now all the doors look great, but that one was my second favorite one, and it had the color, it had the waves, it was great. The thing that I didn't like, they used packing tape to hold up part of the ark basically, and so packing tape, not a good thing to use on the walls. Don't recommend it. And every time we walked by, we'd have to fix it a little bit because it was drooping and things would fall. And so it wasn't working really well. So I stuck my head in the door and I said, "Hey, I love y'all's door. It looks amazing. Can we just find a better way to secure it to the wall?" And really it was like a positive interaction. It was, I wasn't being mean. But as soon as I walked into the hallway, I was pretty nearby, and I heard the teacher in there laugh, and she laughed, and she told her husband, partner, who was helping her, "Brother P just told us he hates our door, but he did it in a really nice way." And I'm right outside the door, and I laughed. I think Kimberly heard it too, and I laughed. I stuck my head back in there, and I was like, "No, I really do love your door. Like I do. Like it's my second favorite door right now." But that reminded me that my intent in it was appreciation. It really was, and then just fix this one little thing, But the impact was different, right? The impact was, oh no, there's critique, and there's that defense, and so words don't land where we want them to. Like they don't land from where we send them from. They land wherever the person receiving them is coming from. And so whether it's a kid or a teacher or somebody we're with, it matters that we think about how it's going to be received. Where are they at? And send our words from a place that's going to land in a better spot. Now they fixed the door, and they ended up it looked like unbelievable afterward. Like it was super cool. But when we're working with kids, that gap can be even bigger because they're inexperienced. They don't have the experience of figuring out what you mean. Like they don't know. They don't know sometimes what it is that you're meaning to come across as. But they do know what they experience. And a lot of kids today, they experience a lot of yelling in the home, a lot of cussing them out. Like it's unbelievable the things that you hear when you're out and about, just in public even, never mind behind the closed door at home. And if they're getting that in the middle of Walmart, what in the world are they getting at home? And so they have that insecurity and that fear and that shame and embarrassment. And we've got to be super intentional how we approach that. And we can't take it, like it can't be to the other extreme where you just coddle them. Like you've got to correct. But when you do it from a place of love and you communicate that love and you turn them into fans, you turn them into teammates with you, it makes a difference. Words matter. But we've got to know how our words are going to be received, not just the intent from what we sent those words from. So in Genesis, God shows us a pattern, right? He spoke and he created something, and then he stepped back and he looked at it. Now, as God, he looked at it, he said, that's good, right? And at the end, he said, that's very good. Sometimes when we look and we step back from it, we're like, oh, that wasn't so good. We didn't, we missed it there, right? And so again, we've got that next Sunday, that next opportunity to change it and to shift, okay? But we can speak, we can shape, we got to evaluate. And then every Sunday, we're building that atmosphere. We're building that confidence in those kids. We're building that identity, and that becomes the culture of who we are and what we're known for. Are we the church where they're going to get kicked off the bus because they're rambunctious? Or are we going to be the church that shapes them into who they need to be? It happens through us and how we choose our words. We get to choose the atmosphere we want because that atmosphere is going to shape that story, that Mad Lib. And that story is going to shape that culture on who we are and what we know. And that's going to last. That's going to last way beyond us. Yeah, Brother Bradshaw.
So every Sunday, you're either creating or destroying something. You're either creating passion, creating excitement, or you're destroying, what is there. And when we did a podcast on this, Sunday School Junkie, you can go back and listen to it. There was a lot of things that we talked about on this podcast, and a lot of things that we didn't get to hit that I wish we would have, because there is so many more avenues that you can go to when you begin to talk like this. But right now, if I were to ask you, what does your internal voice sound like? Because we all have an internal voice, don't we? Usually it's criticism against ourselves. Usually it's Chris, you're an idiot. I can't believe that you did that, or I can't believe you did this. But you know what my inner voice sounds like? It sounds like the adults in my life's external voice. And when your external voice becomes someone else's internal dialogue, my question is what does that internal dialogue sound like to that kid? Is it always condemning? For some of us in here, that's all we came up with. That's why I guess we're so hard on ourselves, because that's all we've heard coming up. And more often than not, we think about the correction that we've got in our life instead of the attaboys. Why is it that we focus so much on the negative? Well, if we're doing that as adults, what are our kids doing? I'm telling you, they're doing the exact same thing, if not worse. Because all of a sudden, Brother Bradshaw doesn't like me when I was simply trying to correct a temporary behavior. And it becomes now the identity of, well, Brother Bradshaw doesn't like me, so they start avoiding me. And it's simply because the words that I used landed, in a spot that I didn't intend it to land. Unfortunately, you and I do not get to pick where those words land. I don't get to choose how my words make you feel, but I can be cognizant about my words, and I can be careful with my words and do my best to make sure that if they do land, they land like a feather instead of like a bowling ball, and make sure that I can soften my intent behind those words so that when they do land, I'm not wounding somebody's spirit, and I'm not wounding that child. But every Sunday you are building culture, all with words. If words were not important, why in the world? Anybody heard the story of the Tower of Babel? Why in the world did he confuse language if words weren't important? Because he realized when we can all communicate effectively, when we can literally do anything that we put our minds to. So here we are, we have this huge tower that's being built, and God had to confuse their language, because if he didn't, they were about to reach the heavens. All simply because they were on the same page. Well, if we can get on the same page and get our kids invited into this space with me to become part of the solution, and we begin to create something that is so beautiful, and it turns into kids who are now preteens who still come to you for advice. It turns into adults who I hadn't seen some of my kids that I've done youth camp with. I did a youth camp in 2019. Last year, I was doing another youth event, and a guy came up to me and he said, "Brother Bradshaw, I'm still in church because of this lesson that you taught." I forgot that I had even taught this lesson. But the words that I spoke life into that young man. And now, because of that, he's still in church today. I didn't have a clue what he was going through. But we created something simply with our words. You don't need a bigger stage, although it would be nice. You don't need better decorations, although you should strive for those. You don't need louder music. You need intentional language. Because when you can be so intentional with how you say things, run it through whatever filter that you have. Mine is very short. Run it through whatever filter that you have. But be careful and intentional, because we are literally building these kids up, or we are destroying them simply with our words. The words that you use today will echo into a child's heart tomorrow. There's people in here right now, as a kid, things were said to you, and they still sting today. Am I telling the truth? I have things, my God, that I could tell you right now that happened to me, things that were spoken to me when I was 7 years old, and I can repeat them back to you verbatim because they wounded my spirit. And that's things that I have to live with today because they created something in me. So if that's true for you, if that's true for me, how true is it for these kids that are riding our buses? And that's another thing. I don't like to call them bus kids. I'm creating an identity. They're church kids who ride my bus. Simple things like that right there. Just that one word difference in there. Bus kids, church kids that ride my bus. I guess that's two. Creates an entire different identity for these children. And they begin to realize, oh, that's my church too. I'm not just an outsider who comes on the bus, but I'm a church kid that's happened to ride a bus simply because that's my means of transportation. It changes the way they dress. It changes the way they talk. It changes the way that they act. And all of a sudden they start taking pride in, that's my church, Brother Ashley. I go to church with Pastor Wells. That's my church. I go to church at the First Pentecostal Church. That's my church because I'm not a bus kid. I am a church kid that's riding a bus. And we've created identity. And they begin to realize that this is who I am. Not what I am. What would be, I'm a bus kid. Who I am, I'm part of that church. And all of a sudden, they start taking pride. They're walking past trash. They're stopping and picking it up. Simply because they identify with, that's my church. And it's all in how you word and how you're talking to these children. Because the ultimate goal is we want to get them as kids, and we want to see them become the next evangelists, the next Sunday school teacher, the next plumber, the next window washer. Whatever it is, everybody has a place in the kingdom. Everybody. Whatever your place is, the church needs you. If I cut your big toe off right now, you're going to have to go to therapy to relearn how to walk. And that's just one member. It all works together when we all have our place. It all works together when we all have our job and everybody does it effectively. And it starts with you and I being intentional with the words that we are choosing to talk to these kids with. Instead of you are a problem, I'm going to invite you with me to come be a part of the solution. And all of a sudden, those words begin to shape identity, and your external voice becomes their internal dialogue, and things begin to shift, things begin to change. What time do we have? Is it 2:30? Do we have 7 more minutes? 2:25. We got 2 minutes. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to ask myself or Brother Pelletier, or clarification on anything? Anything that we didn't cover that maybe sparked an idea in your head while we were talking, something that could help me? Because I don't have all the answers. I wish I did. But anything that anybody can think of that would help me when I go home with my children? No? All right. Well, I guess we take the 2 extra minutes to mingle, go use the restroom, whatever you need to do. But thank you guys so much for coming and listening to this. This is a hill that I will die on, because it is so important. Whether we realize it or not, words matter.
If you are here for a continuation of action songs, you're in the right place, and the doors are locked. And we have 17 more to go. That's good. I heard it was a really good time. Some of y'all are still breathing hard. And yep, it's good. And I'm glad to see that the room is small. I know it kind of sounds funny, but, and I'm not saying any of you guys are burnt out, but I do know that in places and times, especially in leadership, you see times that burnout can be an issue you have to address. And so I'm not thinking that all you guys felt burnout, but hey, if I can give you some tips and tricks and some things to get you going, then we definitely want to do that. We want to prevent it because it's a whole lot easier to prevent it than it is to climb out of it. And I've been a little bit of both places. So this is a 45-minute session, and immediately after this, we're going to go to the main sanctuary for question and answers, and I hope we get lots of them, and I hope somebody can answer them. So just come on down there, and we'll end the session today. So this is our last session. This whole 45-minute session will be the end of the deal, and I think we've had a wonderful time so far. It's been a great, great, great time. We plan to continue to do it every year. So I want to start off by saying that I'm going to add it right after this. So I had put all my slides together. I started way back, and I took notes and thought, well, a lot of times I get inspired when driving down the road, and just voice to text command, I just typed this in. I said, God, if this is something you want me to say, I want to say it. And so I feel like it may have fell from heaven, but what is burnout? And I come up with my definition, and to explain that inside every person, probably more so ladies, I don't know. Men have a different style of a desire to develop something. It's more masculine, it's more building, it's more doing, but women want to develop homes and lifestyles and things, but it's always a desire in somebody to develop something. You want your whole life consists of a repetition of taking things that are lesser and creating things from them, such as your home, your job, your lifestyle, your hobbies, etc. Burnout happens when we feel like our resources and energy are not sufficient enough to achieve the desired end results. And this can come as a conglomeration of many tasks that are ongoing or one massive investment into an achievement such as Sunday school. And it's at this point we realize there's no way we can achieve success like we want it, and we throw up our hands internally and hide under the covers. But the mindset that we've got to have is the increase does not come from our efforts. I think that's going to have to be our key point today. It comes from God. This is the way God has always worked. God takes our meek little efforts and He multiplies them manifold times. And He accomplishes what He wants with what little effort that we're able to invest in Sunday school. And I don't think that was in the slide. I'm going to let y'all, if you want to take any notes from that, I'll stay there a second. And I'm going to say this point while you're writing. The whole process throughout every part of the kingdom of God is always an increase. It's always an uprise. It's always a growth. Heaven is up. I mean, you know, it's just our mindset. Growth happens up. And burnout is something that kind of seems like it's either a plateau or a downfall. So we're not looking for any of that. We feel like the will of God is always an upward deal. But let me explain something to you that I heard, and I love this analogy, and I want to tell it to you. Growth does not always happen in a steady, continuous climb. Take the tide, for instance. This is a concept that people use to explain growth. Tide rises, comes in a shore, then it goes back. And it comes in a little bit further the next time, and the next time it'll go backwards. The next time it comes up, it's a little bit further. And a lot of times we got to think about our lifestyle and our Sunday school investment as the tide. We may think that it's regression, but it's still the process of growth. It's just we got to back up and look at the whole picture. So that's just something I wanted to throw in. So I'm going to tackle my best approach at burnout, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I'm definitely not an expert, because I feel like in my life that I've never been burnt out. I never feel like I've often wondered and felt stressed, but I've never feel like, and we're fixing to tackle this in just a second, but I do realize that there are physical causes of burnout, but mostly what we're going to talk about today is mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and those things. But a physical cause can also create burnout. I understand that, and one of those could be self-neglect. I heard a Kingdom Speak podcast lately. It was a very good episode. I think the name of it was "Don't Withhold the Honey." I think that was the actual name of it, but that was the topic. So the premise of it was God promised the promised land was a land flowing with milk and honey. That's your goal. That's what you're going to achieve if you make it all the way to the promised land. It's a reward for getting there. It's got honey. And we should expect that. We shouldn't expect to fight and be just pulled down all the time. And the comparison that they used on Kingdom Speak, Brother McKillop said, he brought out this point. Saul, who was definitely not, we can't put him on the positive side. We got David and we got Saul. Well, Saul told his whole army in that famished state, they was probably burned out. He said, don't eat nothing. Don't eat nothing. You wait. You wait fasting until I say so. And his son Jonathan wasn't involved in that conversation. And what did he taste? That give him strength, that give him rejuvenation, that enlightened his eyes. What did he taste? Honey. That one thing that was promised to them. Because God's got it for us. And there's going to be adversaries that's going to try to get us to withhold and not take what God's got for us. That's going to refresh us. That's going to open our eyes. And a lot of that can be a mental thing. We can just hold. Sunday school is it's a mental approach, and I feel like it's just stressful. And Brother Bradshaw did an amazing job last session talking about it's a viewpoint deal. Words matter, and it's according to what you look at it like. So don't withhold the honey. When you are in the will of God, there's going to be honey. You just got to recognize it and find it, because it's in the promised land. So we need a balance in life for sure. We definitely want to be invested in the kingdom of God, but we also have times that we're enjoying what God has in the promised land. So don't neglect yourself just because you think that's the greatest thing to do, because it's I'm the greatest teacher. It takes, you get a little honey along the way. A lot of times, here's another big point, we seek perfection instead of progress. Perfection, I've heard this statement, and it's not original with me, but I think I may have it right, brother. Perfection is the thief of production. Is that the right way to say that? And it's so true. I've been so guilty of projects that I want to start, but it's got to be just right. My stress level can grow so much because everything that I do, I think, has got to be better next time. And I've got to control my mind to the point to where I've got to just do it, make progress, and accept that you just got to step into it. It don't have to be perfect, because what's going to happen is either going to be what it is or it's going to be nothing. Because if perfection will take all of the production away from you. So just like, and we've probably heard it already today, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, but it takes making that first bite. Take the first bite of that elephant, because motivation, doing something, is a byproduct of just doing it. Now, you're not going to be motivated until you begin it. And so that's where motivation always starts, is doing it. Just start it. Don't think about it. Just get going, and that's when the motivation builds up. It's like rolling downhill. All right. Now, I think I've done all I can do with physical causes of burnout. They're real. I'm not saying they're not. We can neglect ourselves. We can always look at it in a mindset it's got to be hard when there's actual things that we should be enjoying, and we can try to be perfect in every way, and it can cause all that. But I think my main focus, and I think this is going to be key to burnout. And like I said, I'm going to assume that everybody here is on that steady up climb, and you're not burning out, but you probably have people under you or around you that you can help out. What if you tried all those things, you say this and that, and it's still not working? You're still burned out. So now, I hope I can step into your minds and pull out some things that the Word of God shows us, that proves to us, it keeps us, if we're in the right vein, if we're in God's will, then I feel like we'll never feel burnt out. That's just my experience and opinion. So there are 3 basic motivations. I had this slide in motives and methods. But we got to look at ourselves, do an introspective analysis. God said, search me, O God. You know, I need to know what's inside of me, and we should do that regularly. Why am I doing this? If you ever get to where you're feeling burnout, evaluate yourself. There's 3 purposes. There's 3 things I say. I didn't get this from a book. It's just something that come out of my own brain. There's 3 motivations for every person, and I've been guilty of two, and they don't seem bad. Number 1 is to please yourself. It's good to have a purpose in life. It's good to say, I'm doing this because I'm supposed to be doing this, and I have ambition, and I'm growing in life, and look at me. That's not all bad. That's not all negative, but it will not sustain you throughout your calling. If you're just doing it because you're supposed to be doing it, you're not drawing from the source that gives you motivation. Number 2, or another reason, another purpose for motivation is to please not yourself, but others. Caring for, giving, serving, doing. And a lot of us are, I say, guilty of that. That's a good attribute to have, to be a giving person. I felt like a lot of times I do things because I want to please or impress my pastor. He's here. Or my dad or my grandmother who raised me. I say, oh, I bet she would be proud of me right now. And if that's my motivation, that's going to carry me a little ways, but it's not going to maintain me. There's only one motive, only one purpose that we can have that will lead us all the way through without burnout, and that's working for, pleasing God, working for God, pleasing Him, working in the kingdom. And if that's the basis of our work, it's going to carry us no matter what, because what's happening, we have a suction hose over here that's pulling motivation. If it's in the pit of ourselves, I'm supposed to be doing it, it's going to run dry. If it's in the pit of I'm come from a good family and we just always did it and I don't want to keep my pastor proud, guess what? It's not always going. But God is a source that never runs dry. He's always going to be there. So if He's the source, then our love for God and work in the kingdom, I say, if that's your only motivation, and you can get your mindset there, there will be continuous energy, continuous sources to draw from. It will always be a fuel for your fire. Those other fuels will burn out. God will never, ever, ever leave you hanging. We've heard lots of good stories and preaching on how God's kingdom works. And I just titled this investment regeneration, or how to minimize or prevent burnout. So if all of we just talked about that, if all of it is anywhere besides God, we're going to have to limit our invested time and energy or eventually suffer some degree of burnout. I know that sounds, it's going to be hard to implement. You know what I mean? It takes, and you can do it. I've done this so many times in my life, and Brother Wells will be so much more apt at teaching and telling and talking about how your mind works in a culture you grew up in a family life that you grew up in, how your mind is typically steered. You can change the direction of your mind and your mindset and get more in tune with God and overcome the crutches that seem honorable family things. A lot of times we're down here in the South. There's a lot of pride that flows in our veins, and God's got a way of taking our mind and pointing it in the right direction. And we got to make sure we're connected to Him. So, sowing and reaping. That is such an awesome concept. God said, lest the seed be, lest the seed die. I remember Brother from Laurel Riley preach about the corn seed. How just invest in that one bit. Not only does it grow that stalk, it grows a whole kernel of cob or two of many, and those create many, and the multiplication of it that's all God's process. But we got to sow it, and it matters where you sow. God has called us to certain places. You can stick your finger in something that don't belong to you, and it'll never work out. It won't regenerate. It won't grow anything. But when you get to where God wants you to be, that's when God can use you. And I talked about people cannot fill our spiritual cup. Only God can. Oh, let me do this comparison right here. I like this. Spiritual time, effort, and energy received. All right, let's let that soak in. What you receive spiritually, the effort that is invested in you, and the energy that you receive from doing the will of God is directly proportionate to that you give. Not directly proportionate. It's manifold times. We give a little bit, God gives so much more. So, but the more we give, how much more do we get? I like to use this analogy right here. We're all vessels. The Bible teaches that. We're a vessel, clean, should be on the inside as well as the outside. We all hear that good preaching. A vessel is made to hold something, but not just to keep it in there, but to apply it where it needs to be applied. And I like to think of children's ministry and Sunday school like a garden. I love to think of this analogy. We're the vessel. We got what that plant and that plant needs. So what do? We got to make sure that God pours us out in that right place. So let's back up and say, I'm the source. I'm doing this because of I want to have a good name. I want a big tombstone, and I want my family to be proud of me. That's my source. That's what I'm connected to. Guess what? When I get poured out, there I was. I'm done. But when I'm connected to God, I like to think of it as a pump-up garden sprayer. Each person here is not just a vessel, but you are one of those garden sprayers that the master of the vineyard has in his hand. And he bought it at Walmart, and he's so proud of it. It holds the right amount, and he knows what mixture goes in it. He puts in it what needs to be put in it. And he walks through his garden, his Sunday school classes, and he says, that one needs something right there. And uses you and all of us, and he puts us where we need to be. And then over here, he may go over here and apply us over here. He knows what needs to be in us. And guess what? When we go to running dry, he's going to go, and he's going to put himself. He's that living water. And he's going to fill us back up, and he's going to go on a Sunday night or whatever, in a prayer meeting, and because we're in the Master's hands. If we walk along here and say, ooh, I love the toddler class because all we do is eat candy and take naps and let them play. I love the teen class because we get whatever. If you pick what you want and you get in a comfortable little position and you just stick right there, guess what? If the master wants you over there, he's going, and you're just kind of stuck here. You think, well, this is where I belong. This is my calling. I feel good here. My fit here. Guess what he's going to do? Psh, he's going to go get another garden sprayer and go over there, and you're going to be sitting over here dried up and burnt out. That's where the burnout, I feel like, comes from when you become disconnected with the master, when you become spiritually not where God wants you to be, not in the will God wants you to be in, not in the position God wants you to be in. Because, like I said, he might have to pick you up and carry you to another department. He may have to pick you up and carry you to another state or country. He may have to put you in a whatever. You know what I mean? But we've got to stay in his hands, in his will, to maintain energy and effectiveness. Amen. We go until 3:30? 3:15. Okay, I think I'm all right. I love this story. I love this right here. I just heard one. Sister Diana's in here. Man, if you did not catch the toddler session, go catch it online. And they both did a phenomenal job. I was so proud of them. But I had something right here that fit this slide so well. I heard it so, man. It was so good. And it just nailed this right here. First, let me tell you the story. I heard this story. It's true. I don't know if it's a true story or not because I didn't see it and I wasn't there. There was a soldier somewhere overseas fighting. This young boy, you know how they are. They leave home at a young age, and maybe 18, 19 years old. That's the age that they leave home, and they still have that connection with home, and it's hard. And they're over here and thrown in this war zone, and this happened. The story I heard was this. He was in the war zone. He's away from home, and you know how just turmoil and chaos and life, and he just misses home, and he misses being where he's supposed to be. And he receives a letter one day, and his dad had wrote him, and he opened it up. And he opened that letter up, and guess what was in it? I think it was a little note, but there was also some fresh cut hay inside that envelope because it was hay cutting season back home. And his daddy knew if he could smell that fresh cut hay, that it would give him some regeneration, some motivation to get back home. I already have chill bumps. Sister Diana shared a story with us. She's got that envelope, and she shared it with us. Every one of us has something in our life that we can draw from. We can smell, and it's going to build up something inside of us. I can tell you what it is for me. I got lots of good things that I can draw from that well and bring that memory back and regenerate my mind and my mindset by smelling that hay. We need to do that often. Think about, you may have had a grandparent that invested in you, and the seminal moment that Sister Diana talked about was when she was a little girl. I don't know if I can do it without squalling, Sister Diana. She said the only birthday party she ever remembers having in her whole life as a little girl was in Sunday school class. Her Sunday school teacher baked a cake and set it on in the area, and that was her birthday cake. And they centered the whole service, the whole Sunday school class around, and she went to explain. She could tell you the lesson, the games they played. And this was they were the army, and they were protecting the home fort, and everybody was trying to get back at home, and they were protecting. And she shared she made a special deal for her birthday. Her parents never did, but her Sunday school teacher did. And she cried telling about it because that is the envelope she opened up that she drew from. That's what gives her strength today. That's why she's out knocking doors on Saturday. One of the things, she knew she had a Sunday school teacher. That story, that life event was her motivation. And we all have little things like that in our lives. I don't know your stories. I know mine. And I can draw from those things and smell it and kiss it and keep it close and listen to it often if it's whatever it is. I'm telling you, think about it, draw from it, and use it. All right, I got 15 minutes. I'll talk real slow. I got a story. I got 2 stories. Let me tell you about these 2 stories. Let me start with this story. So, it was about last winter. I had some friends that I'm connected with that they can be aggravating. They really can. They pushed me into, they got this special duck hunting spot. And I've been around these friends a lot. They were, I'm telling you, they'll grate your nerves. So I just didn't want to be that guy. So on my Saturday morning, I got up extra early. I got all my gear together the night before, drove to this place, and here we were in a little pothole in the middle of nowhere that they were so proud of. And I mean, I'm just humoring them, you know. I slipped on my cold waders. I could have been in that warm bed, and it was bitter cold. And I forgot to put my waders in the house, and they were cold. And I got my gun, packing my bag. Had to pack some of their stuff. And we had to wade way out there to where they wanted to get. So here I am trudging, and about halfway there, I realize I've got a hole in my waders. Yeah. So here we go. I just get up there, get to the blind, a little old makeshift blind that, I mean, looks like a junior high kid put together. I lit my gun up in it, throwed my gear in it. The next thing I hear was, kaloosh. My gun had slipped off, and it didn't even have a side. It was just brushed in, and there was my stoker laying about 3 foot of icy cold water. Breathed hard, made my way around, fiddled around with my foot, got it just without trying to get soaking wet. Ice hanging on stuff, you know. Get in here. I mean, you're there with me right now. Well, guess what? Daylight came, and we waited. They over here blowing duck calls to nothing in the sky. And just, I guess, trying it out. And shaking, wet, cold. Could have been back home in the bed. Well, a few old scragglers come in. I think some McGanzers that you can't even eat. Boom, boom, boom. And, you know, and it's over in just a little while. We picked up maybe a few ducks. So then we had to get out of there after just freezing to death, waded back through the water after I'd halfway dried, cold again, thrown in the back of the truck, muddy, get my truck wet, and make it back home. And glad to get in front of the heater. Now let me tell you about another story. I had some grandkids, some boys that I dearly love. They grew up under Papa's wing. I hope, my goal is to be their favorite in life. That's my goal, and I'm achieving it along the way, I believe. And they love, because I've took them duck hunting enough, they had got to the age that they had kind of done a few things on their own, and they wanted to take Papa hunting. And somebody let them in on a decent spot that was, it had some wood ducks coming in. And their wood ducks are really fun to shoot. That's about all that was coming in. But so anyway, they were so excited. So we got out there early. I'm talking about, it was one of those perfect mornings that you see the stars before daylight, and you could just tell you're going to have a good day. My boys have grown up. And they're taking pawpaw hunting now. I mean, my heart was just swelled with joy. And we waited out there. These dudes built this blind themselves. I'm talking about, they literally hammered it together in the water, and they were so proud of it. I'm talking about, like, one of them was 16, I think. One of them was about 12 at the time, and they spent a lot of time out there. And it started getting daylight, and I seen their spread. They put their ducks just right, and they put a mojo down. And I looked over at them, and my heart was just overjoyed and swelling. I heard right at daylight. You talk about excitement. And so the oldest grandson, he was the one that kind of heading it up. He's gonna call the shots. They were doing all the calling. I was just sitting there as a guest. And I said, okay, take them. I'll raise up, and the sky is full of wood ducks flaring back like this. Doo-doo-doo-doo. We dropped about 4 right there. And I think we killed our limit pretty quick. Can't kill but 3 apiece. We had 9. Oh, high-fiving. Mama was wanting some wood ducks to put in a dressing. She was hoping we would kill some. So we gathered them up, got pictures. I still got the pictures on my phone. Got back to the truck, took them home, plucked them. She put them in a dressing. It was around Christmas time. We carried them to her parents, told everybody, this is ducks we just killed. And my heart was overjoyed. Now, can I tell you that both of those stories were the exact same event? Sure was. It was all in how I looked at it, my perspective. It really was cold. My waders really did have a hole in them. It was just about, well, I think we wound up getting 9 after sitting for a while. All that was there, but it was how I perceived it and how I turned around and told you about it. I told the story in here in Motives and Methods about James Stockdale, and I think I'm going to have to hit it again. He said, you must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality. Now, that is a fancy way of saying it is what it is right now. I can't do nothing about it, but I got faith it's going to get better. And if we approach Sunday school and anything that we get burnt out about with that mindset, guess what? Here's what he said about let me tell you quick. Did everybody here, who heard Motives and Methods about James Stockdale and the prisoner of war? 3 of us. Some of us didn't. Good. I'll tell you guys. Y'all just suffered through it. He was an admiral in the Air Force during the Vietnam War, was shot down, and was captured by the Vietnamese and put in prisoner of war camp called Hanoi Hilton. That was the term that Americans used for it because it was a place it definitely wasn't Hilton. It was the opposite. It was torture. It was many prisoner of wars died there. Matter of fact, I think if I read right, most of them by torture, neglect, and the ones who did survive suffered years of therapy, and they're distraught, committed suicide, addicted to things, and it messed their complete life up. Going through that traumatic time, it was like, I forgot how many years it was he's been in there. It was a long time. But this man, he got out. He became a motivational speaker. He had a beautiful family who were successful. He went on, studied, and grew, and ran for vice president of the United States with Ross Perot. And so they was interviewing him. They said, how did you turn out like this when all these other people lost hope and didn't make it? He said, that's easy. He said, I can tell you. He said, the ones who didn't make it out were the optimists. That sounds crazy, but he said the ones that said, oh, we'll be out of here by Christmas, they had their faith in, I'm looking at the end goal. Christmas come and gone. They didn't make it. They were still there. So we'll be out by Easter. We're America. We're going to make it. We're tough. We're strong. It's going to happen. Easter would come and go, and they got to where their hope was shattered so much that they lost hope, and they gave up, and they died. This man said, I looked at it with this concept. It's bad. This is a horrible place to be, but it can't last forever. And I have faith in God that God is going to deliver me. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I'm going to take each day as God gives it to me. And he changed his mindset to find the little things that were good in each day. He may not have seen daylight for several days, but he would think about, he would think about, at least I'm not cold if it was hot. He was cold, at least I'm not burning up. At least I have all my limbs right now. He would think of little bitty things to keep him going. And in the end, his mind excelled and continued on. We can't deny that we feel burned out, but like Admiral Stockdale, we can keep our faith in the end of the story. We can say, God's not finished with me yet. He's still working, and the end is going to be worth it. That's the secret, I feel like, to not being burned out. It's not blind optimism. The Sunday school is the greatest thing in the world. No, it's not. It's not. Being the king of something might be better. It's not. It's nasty. It stinks sometimes. It's hard, and we have to do extra things. But we have hope in the end result, grounded in the faith that God is going to carry us through it. So that's going to be, I think, our perception is going to keep us out of burnout. And I got one story that I'm going to add to this. And as close as I came, I wouldn't call it burnout. I felt really, really, really overwhelmed about this time last year. My parents, who both lived next door. I'm talking about Brother Bradshaw's been there. You see their house. My dad's every day. This is all us. We just every day eating together, communicating daily. My parents both worked, doing good. My mom was 68. My dad's 70. Running a sawmill every day. I'm going in and look and talk to him every day what he's done. He's always got a word from God about something. He's just a very spiritual man. Listen to Holy Ghost radio constantly. He had these Bluetooth earbuds, hearing aids, and it was constantly going. He loved Larry Booker. Sure Mercies of David was his favorite message. And so anyway, I'm going to just run through this because I got 5 minutes. My mama had been a little bit sick back around Christmas time, and we didn't know. We didn't know what the deal was, and took her to the hospital, and they decided her gallbladder must be bad. So we're going to take her gallbladder out. This was the end of January. But they seen some things on the scan that looked concerning, but we're going to deal with that when we get your gallbladder out. So about January 26th, she went in under the knife and never woke up. She was in just a state of disorientation, like she was sedated and couldn't communicate. And we asked the doctors, was she going to wake up? Yeah, it should wear off. She never did. Whatever reason, she declined, and about 10 days later, we just got her home, and she passed away. And the morning she passed away, my dad, they've been married 50-something years, distraught. It was a hard time for him. Well, she passed away, and by the time the ambulance came, got her, took her out, it was about 5 o'clock in the morning. Well, my dad got a little bit of sleep. We lived right there, and we went on home, went to bed. I come back up there about 9 the next morning. He's dressed, ready to go. He said, I don't know. We're going to have a lot of planning to do. I don't know what I'm going to do about this and this. I said, Daddy, we're going to worry about that. He said, I'm going to run to town and get some fuel in my truck. He drove off. Now, my brother had drove up there. He said, I'll be right back. And we get a phone call from Sister Kylie, Sister Audrey's mom. Said, your dad's over here in the ditch. Said, something's wrong. So we get over there, and he had a stroke, and he was completely disoriented out of it. We rushed him into the emergency room, and some things happened. It's crazy. They wasn't able to do the shot or the thrombectomy, and wound up in the hospital, still not knowing his status. He just was kind of out of it. He could stare at you. That's about all he could do. And we didn't know. He may get better, they said, or he may die. We don't know. It's just all according to what his brain does. And here's Mom. We got her back home. So for 7 days, we waited kind of to see what Daddy's going to do. And he continued to decline. Anyway, we run home, buried Mom, come back. My dad died like the next day. And so this time last year, I just buried 2 parents. And we just lost a son-in-law to brain cancer just about a year before. Our daughter was key in Sunday school, had decided that she didn't want to go to Sunday school anymore, and she done her own thing. And it was just so much trauma, so much. And on the top of the fact, my dad and Mom had so many things. Their life was so full. My dad spent a lot of time mechanicking for other people, big mechanic shop, sawmill, big garden we raised together, all this property we had to keep up, and all that fell in my lap. And I felt overwhelmed. I really did. And this story is really what proved to me that when I feel overwhelmed and I feel like burnout's coming, really what that is lack of faith. God give all this to us. He give you that job at Sunday school. It's not up. It's God's job to keep us going. So I just learned that when I have faith in the end result, then I don't feel overwhelmed. I don't feel burnout. So I think that story of that one guy really helped me a lot, and I hope it helped you. So it's 3:14, and I drug it out just about right. Anybody got any questions or comments? I think the end result is perception. Look at it like, hey, I may be going through a rough time, and your world, your life, your house may be in turmoil, but it is what it is right now. You may be living, paying mortgage on one and remodeling another one, and all this stuff piled on you. But the deal is, you don't look at all that. You look at the end and have faith that that's going to get you there. And God gave it to you, so God's going to give you the ability. Amen. So I hope that helped you out today. Thank you.